Welcome to Learning to Trust with Scott and Becky Quinlan. Our desire is to discuss topics such as marriage, infidelity, forgiveness, our relationship with God, and our journey to find our true identities. Today, we take you on a radical journey of trust. This journey took us to 3 states in 4 years. Come along as we share our lessons learned along the way. Thank you for joining us, and here we go.
Hey, welcome back. This is Learning2Trust with Scott and Becky. We're on part many of many, I guess.
It's a mini series that
Yeah.
has evolved here.
We were trying to tell our story like in 30 minutes, the second half. We're on like part 3 or 4. I don't even know.
I think it's 4, but
I think it's part of it. We're just trying to be genuine and honest, and we have a little bit of notes here, but it's like not even a page. It's just a little timeline thing. So
yeah,
none of this is practice, none of it's rehearsed. We're just going through and retelling these stories, and actually it's been really good. It's been really good.
It has been good.
God is faithful. God is good. Jesus, just following Jesus. There's nothing else like it. So,
Do you know how many life lessons we learned in such a short amount of time?
Yeah.
I mean, to review, we've only told you of what was that? Like, gosh, I can't even think about it. June of 2016, and now we're up to January of 2020.
Yep.
So, and not even 4 years. This is 3.5 years. All this has happened in 3.5 years.
Yep.
And so,
just thinking about this, I just remember this now. I remember when we got to Florida, and the Rileys, who were our Bible study leaders for our Bible study. That was before I got my job even. And I was actually going back to Kansas City to interview with the company that I quit.
Yeah.
The guy, one of the reasons I quit, this guy was getting promoted and getting a bunch of backing, and he made everything political. It wasn't fun. I was just kind of done with work anyway, that type of work. Anyways, but I told him on my way out, I was like, this guy has no character, no morals, and lo and behold, within a few months after I left, he got fired for sexual harassment. And so like all of a sudden they're like, oh, Scott, we want you back. And I'm like, so I entertained it, but nothing happened, which was good because I don't think I was ready to go back to that life anyways.
But something did happen.
Yeah. So they gave us, I remember my flight out there, they gave us this book. It's called Radical by David Platt.
Yes.
And because we just felt like, what is going on? Why are we doing this? Like, everything's so weird.
We were a couple weirdos. Like, we didn't fit in anywhere. And we're like, gosh, why? And then, but we read this book because the Rileys suggested it to us. And all of a sudden we're like, this is us.
I remember reading on the plane. I was like, this is what we're supposed to be doing. This is awesome. Like,
we're not weirdos.
Yeah. We're still weirdos.
We're still weirdos. But
So that book by Radical David Platt really helped us out a lot. So kind of explains like what's going on here, right? Like Jesus called us to do some crazy stuff, and we did it. We jumped in the deep end, like off the cliff into the ocean, more or less.
Yeah, we did.
But yeah, it's pretty crazy this 4 years of our lives, and so now we're in Oklahoma City. Wheels fell off the restaurant. COVID hit. Things are crazy. Yeah.
We get back. Well, how do we want to start this?
So we're still in Oklahoma City.
We're still in Oklahoma City.
We're decided, all right, it's time to move back home. So I remember the weeks leading up to that decision, we had talked about it. And I grew up in a small town, Thomasboro. We always lived out in the country, or in Thomasboro. It's a little town, 1,200, nice little town. Our places in the country were really nice. We had our dream home out in the country. Becky grew up in Royal, which is a really small town.
Not even in town, though. I was outside. I was in the country, too.
And then they moved out to the country just outside of Paxton, which is another small, like 4,000 person town. But in between Thomasboro and Paxton is a town called Rantoul. And there was an Air Force base here, and it closed my freshman year in high school. And it diversified really quick because a lot of the housing on base turned into low income housing. A lot of people come from Chicago, from Gary, Indiana, from Danville, Decatur, just a lot of. It was a place, and still is a place to live cheaply, truthfully.
Yeah.
And it's gotten a bad rap. And little Chicago, there's been
Kentucky, it's got all these names that
since we moved here, there's been a lot of gang fighting. There's been fully automatic weapons being shot. Yeah, a lot of drugs, a lot of brokenness. But I think that's why I felt very strongly to move here, but Becky wasn't quite so on board. So I'm like, she's
really?
like, well, how about St. Joe? I'm like, nope.
No,
I feel like
didn't.
I remember
I wanted to go more towards like where my family's down in more southern Illinois.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to go down that area is really where I wanted to go. But you really felt strongly about here, and I resisted for a while until we got here. And then I remembered like there's something about living in a place where people know who you are. Like that can be good or bad. Mm-hmm. But I remember we moved in and like we just kept seeing people, and people would drop off gifts just to welcome us back home. Like so it quickly became a place where I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're figuring out where we want to live, and I was just dead set on Rantoul. I feel like the Lord spoke very clearly to me. This is where we need to be. So the day we finally got on the same page, I remember we woke up early in the morning. We're still running a restaurant. COVID's going on.
We're exhausted.
Yeah, we're exhausted. We're praying. We're laying in bed praying about it, and we both said, "Yep, we feel like Rantoul is where God wants us to go." Yep. And so, sorry, shut up. Rantoul is where God wants us to go. And so, I remember we're still in bed, got to pray, made a decision. I pull up my phone out of Realtor.com, and the house we're sitting in right now.
Sitting in. Yeah. Now reporting from the rooftop.
Yeah. No. So, it comes on the market, and it was $87,000 for a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, and kind of the nicest part of town. Our they literally built one of the nicer houses in town. Got built right behind us when we moved in.
Yeah.
And so we made that decision, and here's the next 3 weeks. I used to work for a bank here in Rantoul, and I did their computer support. I actually worked for them. They contracted me. I had a computer business before we left here. Mm-hmm. Emailed the owner, one of the owners, and say, hey, who do I need to talk to about getting a loan? He calls me up that day and say, hey, what's going on? I was like, well, we're in Oklahoma City. We got to put our house in the market. It hasn't sold yet. We want to buy a place. Don't really want to rent. Don't really want to live with my mom. No offense to her, but at that point, our kids were quite a bit bigger. And it's just been a lot. She only had one extra bedroom. So that really was just no place for us to go.
Yeah. And
so he said, well, I'll just give you an unsecured loan. You make a cash offer on the house today. I'm like, what?
What?
Yeah. So I know it's not a lot of money, $87,000. I mean, it is to some people, but it's in the housing world, that's not a lot of money.
But it is. To have someone say, hey, we trust you. And remember, we had lived in big cities, Kansas City, St. Petersburg, Oklahoma City, where no one knew us. Yeah. And now all of a sudden to come back home and they're like, we know you guys. Just make it happen. We'll figure it out. Our jaws were on the floor, and I knew God had something to do with. Absolutely had something to do with that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so we made an offer on the house right away.
We never stepped foot into it, but luckily,
my mom and my cousin FaceTimed it and showed it to us, and we ended up. Finishing work on the house we did. We had flooring. I did some sink. I had to repair some termite damage in the garage. We painted. We got that house kind of cleaned up. And exactly 3 weeks from the day we said we're ready to move and found this house in the market, we moved in here.
We're moving in here.
We've worked at the restaurant. Still upheld all my duties there. Finished flipping that house, cleaning that house, packing up, moving, selling stuff. And got on the road and got here. And then the day, I just remember we thought we had a kind of lake, kind of not across, there's a house across, but next to that house is a lake with a fountain in it and a bike path and playgrounds and stuff and pretty decent sized little park. And then behind us, at the time there was 4 vacant lots. We're like, oh, this is great. It's almost like we're living in the country but in town, right in the heart of town. And I remember as we're unloading the first box, a excavator pulls off of a trailer and starts digging the foundation and footings for a new house right behind us. So So yeah, that dream
know.
of having like kind of like our own little.
It's still,
yeah, it's still
we're
great.
so blessed.
Still
Like
great. It's such a blessing.
this location is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's still definitely a blessing. But yeah, so in 3 weeks we went from I think we're going to move to let's move to we're here.
Yeah.
And so we ended up quickly realizing, I think, didn't know if, we don't have any notes on this part of the story.
I know, we're just winging it now.
I think probably the quickest thing we realized that things weren't the same.
No.
My family,
Not
your
at all.
family more so was better. Dealing with my family was just a lot different. I mean, you move away, and so kind of like the backup, when we lived here, my grandma's house was the hub.
Mm-hmm.
After she passed away, our house became the hub. We had the big basement and the heated shop and in-ground pool, and we started hosting all the gatherings and the parties, and just on a whim. It could be Friday afternoon at 2:00. Next thing you know, texts are flying, and we have a party that night with all our family. That's kind of the way it rolled.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we get back, and one of my cousins doesn't live here anymore. My other cousin's got his own business, and a lot of the family's older, and just things were immediately different. Not necessarily that we did anything or they did anything.
Involved.
Yeah, our kids are all older in
Yeah.
high school and sports. Yeah, so things changed a lot just because everybody was busy and we had gotten out of that routine. And our new house was no longer that capable of being the hub. Like,
Yeah.
we couldn't just like jump back into this. House didn't have a basement or a big garage or the places. We kind of did. We had an outdoor gathering when we first moved back here, but still, this wasn't the same.
No,
It's just not the
it's
same.
just different.
And so yeah, these things are really, we just notice everything's different.
We didn't really have the same friends that we had
Yeah.
when we moved away. You know,
Yeah,
like
it'd been
our friends were
just long
different.
enough where everything kind of fell away.
Yeah.
And so it's like starting over from scratch. Even though we know everybody, we're still just
it's like
starting
we're a
over
new
from
town.
scratch. Yeah. So we started in our house church, and we started meeting with people and inviting people to house church. Started loving our neighbors. Just let's do what we do best, I guess. We weren't. So that was April. I think we started talking with some people starting a church. That hadn't started yet. It started that October, I think. So a few months after we got here. So yeah, they were launching a church. I got a job. Immediately hated it. Quit that job after 3 months.
But so I want to talk about this a little bit. We got here, and so we had come from Oklahoma, and everything was still open, even though COVID.
Yeah. Yep.
We came to Illinois, and right after we moved in, and I don't know exactly the time frame, but it seemed like right after we moved back here to Illinois, everything shut down.
Yep.
And so Illinois went on complete lockdown.
Because Oklahoma shut down and opened up.
But opened up.
And then we came here and it was still shut down, I think.
And right after we got here, it shut down. So it's like it came with us. So
yeah.
And so here we were, new place. We hadn't established any friendships or anything, and we were completely shut down. And I remember it was just a kind of a dark time because we went from doing what we, like missionary style work. We were really working with people, and then all of a sudden we were like alone. And so it was, I just remember that was kind of a tough time, but it was also a time of rest because we had just been through, like I said, this is still only, 2020, it's still 4 years that all of this stuff had happened. And I felt like we were being granted rest, but we didn't know how to do that well.
Yeah.
And I think you were in kind of an icky place. Then you got that job and didn't like it, and it was still continued to be kind of an icky place. And then it took us a while to feel any kind of settled here. Yeah. It was a really rough, I would say, from April of 2020 until probably a year and a half.
Yeah, I think it's fair.
It was hard.
Yeah.
Just spiritually hard.
I actually just forgot about all that because
I would say you were borderline depressed. And then I kind of went that route just because it was a hard time. It was a hard time for everybody. Yeah. Emma was struggling. I think the other two were doing okay on the outside.
No, but Brady was struggling.
No, they were all struggling. That's right.
Brady
all three of the kids were super struggling with just, again, isolation and anxiety over everything that was happening. And
can't do anything. Yeah.
Then they started to go back to school, and it was weird. Like they only went a couple days for half days, and then they had all this work to do at home. And
yeah. So then you started homeschooling because Emma quit high school and Brady essentially quit middle school.
yes, I
Just
pulled him.
because,
I'm
yeah, we
like,
pulled
yeah,
them. Yeah,
this is
it was
nonsense.
not
So
good. Anna
Anna was the
stayed
only one who
because of
stayed.
sports. She
Yep.
couldn't do sports, and she's like, "I'll deal with it if I can do sports."
Yep. Yep. So we were just like trying to do
Yeah,
life again
I
and
forgot about that. Yeah.
navigating new things. And so
Yep.
it's really been tough up until just recently, I would say, where I
I
feel
even
like
remember. So I quit the job. I had a job like 3 months in Champaign, and then I prayed. I was like, "Man, Lord, I just want a job where because working remote's a big thing now." I was like, "I want a job where I can work remote." And it pays way better than this, and my boss is cool. I got this whole list of things like,
mhm,
but remote was a big part of it. And so then I started searching on some of my unique skills I had and systems I worked with, and placing. It's Houston where it showed up.
mhm.
Ended up being Tyler, Texas, but ended up, yeah, just getting a job in Tyler, Texas, working remote, and it's been great. I'm still there. In fact, I'm potentially my boss has resigned a week and a half ago, so I'm working on potentially moving up there, and I think this is good timing because I think I'm ready for it. Feels a lot different than it ever has in the
Changing
past.
position, not
Yeah,
moving. Yeah, just not physically moving, but
yeah, moving up in
position
the
change.
company. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Well, and also during this time, I was noticing all this stuff that was going on, not just with our own kids, but kids that we knew here in town. And I had all this time because I hadn't, I was still homeschooling and I didn't have a job outside of the home. And so I ended up taking a course.
right.
It was a mental health first aid responder course,
Yep.
which through a scholarship I was able to get for free through Light University. And it was a certificate program. It was like 40 hours of work, and I took that. And I tell you, God's timing and everything is amazing because some of the kids were having these problems, and now I was trained in this to recognize when it was just like normal, like mopiness or sadness versus like there's a
Yeah.
need, there's a problem here that's more than just. And so I felt like God equipped me with that. um and just figuring out that all of a sudden I had a real desire for uh counseling. I mean, I wouldn't say counseling because of course
Yeah.
that's not a certified anything, but just really that God was equipping me to be able to help people through just listening and stuff like that. So he's shaping me right now because I was always the kind of person that, I mean, people would, I think we've talked about this before in one of our videos, but people will just walk up to me and just talk. I mean, I call it,
I
they kind of throw up all over me. I don't know.
I
I'm kind
say
of graphic when it comes to stuff, but
I always said like like 0 to 60 miles an hour, like they'd throw up their life story in you in 0 to 60 seconds. Yeah, it's
yes.
like, yep.
And there's just, I don't know what it is about me, but people, just, I would just ask a question like, hey, how are you doing today? And I would get a response every single time. And I'm like, there's something to this. And so I've just been really interested in that. And I'm still pursuing trying to figure out what the best course is for me, because
Yeah.
this is an interest in mine in stepping in and helping people, whether that be life coaching or like a certificate in Christian counseling or something. I'm not sure. I'm still
Yeah.
researching that. Maybe you could pray for me in that one, in that regard. But so this became a passion of mine.
Yep.
And then gosh, still there's so much to talk about, but I'm trying to figure out like where we should go
Yeah, I
from
think kind of
here.
next, like the house church thing is just way different here than it was in the other places. Just we're
Yeah.
definitely not in the Bible Belt. We're not even close to the belt anymore. It's kind of really different. People don't want to talk about Jesus. People don't want to talk about church. A lot of church hurt here, I think.
A lot of church hurt.
A lot of church hurt here.
Yeah.
We ended up joining a
Church plant.
church plant from Champaign. Kind of, yeah, we had some rough starts with that too, but ended up joining that church. Still a part of that church. Yeah, it's been good. Just
What I love about our
yeah,
church is that it's it's full of real people who have real things going on in their life, and they're not afraid to talk about it. And
yeah,
I feel like our church really feels like a family.
yeah,
Like I just we were the
yeah.
youngest people in our church in Florida, right?
Yeah.
We were the babies of the church, and now we're like mom, dad, grandma, grandpa
Hmm.
like role in this church. And I just have felt in the last few months like I remember one of the guys, remember Marcus, came up to me and he called me Mama Becky once, and I'm like, wait a second,
How dare you?
I thought we were friends. Like, you're calling me Mama Becky, and I'm like, wait a second. And I started doing the mental math. I'm like, dude, you could be my son. Like,
Yeah,
and it like my brain switched. Like, no, they are not. That they don't think of you as a peer. And this was kind of at first a
yeah,
real blow to my ego, because I thought I was super cool, and they just want to hang out with me because I was really cool.
yeah.
And maybe so, you know, but I remember him saying, sorry, Marcus, I'm calling you out by name. Um, but then I started to think about it, and I'm like, you know what, you're right. Like, I am that age. Like, it's probably time for me to grow up and act like it. No, I still
uh,
don't. But the fact that their perception of me was
yeah.
in that role of mom
So
ish.
there's actually in our church a need due to circumstances where people do kind of need a mother and father figure in their lives.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So you've kind of stepped into like fun grandpa, grandpa with a beard mode
yeah, a little bit.
that you shave off every night and it grows back every day.
Yeah,
But I think God has really called us to just be that next generation in our church. And honestly, I'm loving it.
yeah.
Once I kind of got over myself and said, no, I want to be a mom. I want to be a mom. Those, to me, is the only job I feel like I've ever truly loved.
Hmm.
I mean, I remember being a little girl and I didn't want to be a doctor or a nurse I wanted to be a mom. I wanted to be a wife and a mom. And I'm really proud of that fact. There was a time in my life where I wasn't, where I felt like less than because I stayed at home with the kids, and I let people make me feel that way, I think, you know. And then I look back on it now, I'm like, oh, what a gift, you know, that I was able to do that for my kids, and that I was able to be a mom. And now our kids are growing up
Yeah,
and they still need us as mom and dad, but you know, they got their own stuff that they're moving on to, and that's what is supposed to happen, you know.
yeah,
But it's also leaving a little bit of a void for us, you know, as we transition from having 3 kids in our home to now we're down to 2. And in a year, it's probably going to be 1. And then who knows, you know, after that. But we're approaching that empty nest phase of our life. And I'm like, you know, we're still mom and dad.
yeah,
And we've just kind of embraced that role. And I mean, I'm excited because I don't know.
yeah,
And then I got all my, when I did go back to work, I guess we could talk about that for a little bit. I went back to
yeah.
work kind of out of necessity because we had some things come up financially that we
Daughter getting
needed.
married,
Well, yeah, and
and some other
that we
stuff.
had
Yeah,
helped some people financially with some things. And we had taxes coming up, and we had all this stuff coming up, and we were going to run a little short. And so I'm like, you know, I think it's time. I went back to work. I went to Lincoln's Challenge Academy, and then I was a teacher there. I taught GED, and then I had all my kids there that I was just kind of mom to, you know,
hmm,
and I love my time there. Um, just with some so if you don't know what that is, it's a program, a quasi military program for at-risk teenagers. It's kind of like a last chance place. And so we had kids there with behavioral problems, but we also had kids there that were just trying to catch up on credits in high school. So it was
Mm-hmm.
for kids 15 to like 18. So, or 15 and a half to 18. So I really loved my time there, but it was a tough place to work. And I was working way too many hours. And I knew I only had a few years left with the kids. And I didn't want to compromise that, So, but my time there just again opened my eyes up to a whole area of need.
Mm-hmm.
Just so much brokenness in the world, and it just broke my heart for the state of things, and gave me more fuel to reach out and give people hope. So Scott and I were running the Discipleship of Christ program there, where we actually brought our home church structure into the program, and we were able to provide church for some of the kids there. We ended up that one year we baptized 5 kids in the program, just doing amazing work. But again, we were fighting an uphill battle with just the powers that be of this world. And so I wasn't there quite almost a year. But now I feel like there's been a real shift in the past couple months, because we've now feel, and going back to our journals, I just read right after, like back to 2016, right after I read a passage that I said that, how you and I, our desire really was just to help other marriages, other people that were having issues in their marriage, to find hope and healing and all these things. And now we are, 8 years later. And I finally feel like God was like, yes, this is the direction now that I want you two to go. And everything that we have gone through in the last almost 8 years, or just over 8 years, is really giving us the tools that we need to go into this next part of our life. So
yeah, I think the key part is, like, we kind of didn't feel at home here for a long time. I don't necessarily say we still do. It's just, it's a broken world, right? And we don't actually belong here anyways, but it's a tough place to live. But we are actually entertaining moving away, and we went down to Tennessee to meet with the people who used to live down the street from us in Kansas City. They now live in Tennessee, and so does the guy. The reason I moved to Kansas City now lives in the same town in Tennessee, and so we went down there to visit some people, and they were kind of recruiting us to come help with their ministry down there, and we got back, and I was just like, as much as I would love to move to Tennessee, and as beautiful as Tennessee is,
mountains and the trees.
Yes.
Sorry.
Sorry, it's all cornfields and bean fields here. There's hardly any
There's
trees.
a beauty in that too, but
yes, it's a little different. Very flat, like you can see for miles. So yeah, we get back, and I started asking some questions. Are we willing to leave our kids? Are we willing to, let's start some really tough questions. It's like, I feel like God's wanting us to stay here. And so once we kind of made that decision to stay here, things that's really been happening at an abnormal pace. Like the things that are happening, I can't really talk about those right now, but we feel like we're on track to maybe have a place here in the next year or two, and be able to build a retreat center and start having a counseling, Christian retreat center, focus on marriage counseling, and even like an event center, be able to like cater weddings and have weddings there and stuff. Like, really think it's this is what God's called us to do, to serve others, and to hospitality, and to help people with their marriage, and help people with their Christian journey and their walk with Jesus. So I feel like it's where we're called right now, and it's one of the reasons we really started sharing our story on this level. We've always shared it. It's just not. We have shared on the internet actually, but now it's very intentional what we're doing. Sharing our story and getting to the point where we share, our game plan. God gave us the playbook. God gave us to to heal our marriage and heal our relationship and to grow us in faith and grow us in our walk with Jesus. So yeah, so I feel like that's where, I feel like that's where we're going, and God's got us on the right track, and He's confirming it every day. So yeah, so it's been really good. So anything else we
I'm
add to
just
that?
excited to see what's next. I mean, I know we have like a vision in our minds, and it's fun to talk and it's fun to dream, and it's just like we're kind of in this place now where we're like, okay, Lord, you know the desires of our heart. This is what we want to do. But we know that you know more than what we can ever comprehend. And so our prayer now is, Lord, we're going to keep moving forward. If this is your desire, then just keep opening doors for us. And if it is not, just shut us down and don't let us spend another minute on it. We are feeling that, the state of the world right now, if anybody's watching the news, it can be a little frightening. And, we look at that and we don't get scared. We see opportunity, because more than ever, people need to feel hope. They need to have healing, and they need to. I just feel like so many people are living right now in a state of fear and anxiety and just not knowing what the future might bring. And we used to be there. We used to live that way. And our desire is to tell everyone about Jesus, because it is he offers that hope that everyone looks for. And he's the only thing. I feel like everyone was born with a hole in them, and they try to fill it up, for me, it was other people's perception of me, or other people's opinions of me. Like I needed to be validated by people to make me feel good about myself. For Scott, it was worldly things and sexual desires and those things that he was trying to fill that hole with, right? For some people, it's alcohol, meth, school, religion, even, like people fill up with a lot of things, but really the hole that we have is a Jesus-sized hole. He is the only one that can come in and fill us with the fruits of the Spirit. I know that's church-ese, but like peace and joy and happiness, and I should have these memorized, but I don't. But all those things that we long for, only Jesus can provide those things. And so that is the hope. That is the hope that we want to be able to offer people. And so a lot of our, we're going to be talking about some of those things in the videos we do in the future. And, but we're feeling it, what was the word that Q used the other day? Like an acceleration, like, the world is growing darker very quickly, even quicker than I ever remember. And so we feel like Jesus has called us to spread his light in a world of darkness. And that there is hope. There is a promise of, And so that's our desire, whether it's through a marriage retreat or marriage counseling, or maybe just living our life proclaiming this to everybody that we come in contact with, like it's for him to decide and for us to trust that he knows what's best for us. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. So
I don't really have a lot to add to that. I think it's maybe a good place to stop.
Wait,
just
you mean there's not going to be another part?
There's going to be another part. It's not going to be about this.
I know. So that's the last 8 years of our life. 7.5, no, 8, just over 8.
8 plus,
yeah. It's wild and crazy life. But so anyway, we would love to hear your questions or comments. we'd love to speak into that and like answer any questions that you have. We'd love for this to be interactive. I think it's more fun that way. So no question is off the table.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you've got a question for us, you can message on whatever platform you're listening to, or just send us an email at scottandbecky@learning2trust.com. But yeah, we'd love to hear from you. So I think that's it.
Yeah.
Should we wrap up?
Let's put a bow on it. Let's go.
Okay. Thanks for tuning in. Again, this is Becky and Scott with Learning to Trust. God bless.
God bless.
Thank you so much for joining us. We have just finished the story of our 4-year journey. Scott and I will be back soon with lessons we have learned about marriage and intimacy. Please like, share, and subscribe to help our ministry reach those in need. And as always, if you have questions or seeking help, please contact us. We would love to hear from you. God bless.